My name is Al Bondi. I was in World War II, and my job in the Marine Corps was flying Corsair fighter planes.
Were you drafted or did you enlist in the war?
I enlisted, I was 19. My father had died. I lived in western Kansas, and my father had died when I was 14, and so my mother became a teacher, and I went to 3 years of college at Fort Hays, Kansas State, and it was after the third year, and that was the year after the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor. I was driving with another fellow, and he said, I think I'd like to enlist in the Navy Air Course called the V5 program. And I didn't have anything special to do, so I walked in with him, and he took the eye test, and the fellow that was interviewing him asked me, said, well, why don't you take the eye test? I said, well, I wore glasses all through high school and college, and I just broke them recently. I don't think I can pass. Oh, he said, go ahead and read it. So I did, and I passed. Took the train down from western Kansas to Kansas City, Missouri, and passed the written tests. So then my mom, because I was only 19, she had to sign the okay for me to become to go into the flight training program. Took flight training in, I started out in Dodge City, Kansas, flew light planes there. At that time, they were getting so full of cadets that they didn't quite know what to do with them, so they were doing some extra training that they normally wouldn't have done. Then, after I went home for a while after that, I got called to active duty, went to pre-flight at Iowa City, Iowa. That's where I flew what they called the Navy SNJ. Was another two-seater airplane that I was able to pass after I had flown with the instructor for a few hours. And I flew solo. And I graduated in March of 1944. And they sent me to a small place near Jacksonville, Florida, called Green Cove Springs. And that's where I learned to fly the Corsair. Now this is the first plane that I had to fly alone. There was no place for another pilot. Oh. And it was a big plane, had 2,000 horsepower. And the first two times that I took off from the runway, luckily it was just grass alongside a paved runway, and the planes, because of the torque from the propeller, the plane drifted off to the side, and it was in the grass before I got airborne.
Go ahead. Tell me about a couple of your most memorable experiences.
Well, at Green Cove Springs, I was out night flying one time, and there was a captain, and I was a second lieutenant at the time. There was a captain leading the flight, and we went out for about a 3.5-hour flight. It was dark when we took off, and it was dark when we came back, there were 4 of us that I was flying wing on the captain, and then 2 more pilots were flying wing on us. And I got back over the field, and we were given permission to land, and my engine quit. And I called Mayday. They gave me permission to land, but when I came down over the field, I saw that I was going to overshoot the field. So I pulled the wheels back up, and I said a prayer. And you know that I landed out in the dark with the nose of the plane up against a huge cypress stump.
Wow.
And I didn't get a scratch on me. I called the tower and told them where I was, and they said, "Oh, you stay there, we'll send someone out to pick you up." So some of my buddies came out with a boat, actually. There was about 6 inches of water there, and
Wow.
picked me up the next morning, and I could fly over the area and see the plane down there, but it never flew again. This one time, a buddy and I were flying, and we stopped in a small town called Madera, California, which is not too far from Fresno. And the next morning when we took off, my buddy was leading, and he said, "Let's buzz the airport." And I said, "Well, okay, if it's all right with him." I figured it was with me. But when we came down over the airport, instead of just buzzing it and going on, he did what they call a slow roll, where you turn the plane all the way around, only he let the nose drop when he was upside down, and he crashed and burned.
Did he die?
Oh, that's,
And he died?
yes, he did.
You said you didn't see combat. What were your specific job assignments?
Probably the most actual work that I did for the outside of the training was the flying the new planes to the West Coast for the Navy and Marine Corps.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about the war or the military in general?
Well, most of us, we were young and kind of down, but we all really wanted to go over and fight like the guys, but we didn't get the opportunity. And my buddies that went to Korea, they did fly off of the carrier, and there were about 40 of them in the squadron, and one was killed out of the 40. But that's not a bad percentage. But I stayed home after I got married, then actually about 8.5 months later, we had our first girl. Then 2 years later, we had our second girl, who's the activity director here, Sue Hastings. And 57, we had a boy who became a Navy flight surgeon.
Oh, wow.
For 23 years. And we had one more girl that here, and I found there's a place where my son
Ripped it.
helped take care of it.
And that's your logbook?
That's my logbook. Let's see. This would be, I was flying an F-6F, which they call a Hellcat, I went out to the West Coast flying that, so that'd probably be as good as any.
Great.